essentially what happened was Disney very abruptly put out the announcement that Toontown Online was going to be closing on September 19th. This isn't just a private server, but it feels like a direct continuation of Disney's Toontown Online. While we never expected it to go on as long as it has, it was always the plan to try. We certainly want to keep Toonfest going for as long as we can. It's a game that was made by Imagineers, like not so much game designers. Like it was made by people who were creating stuff for the Disney parks.
It's not just me that has questions. There's a whole massive community out there that has questions. So we're going to go through as many of them as possible. So again, if your question does not get asked, I'm very sorry, but hopefully you'll enjoy the questions that do get asked and the answers that are given. So I'm going to address the elephant in the room because people are going to. Is the most popular question, which is there any progress updates on Clear Coasts?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So certainly I came prepared for this one because I know that people, I mean, it's been the eternal question throughout all of Toontown Rewritten's life. I mean, first it was what's under the cloud. And then, we're like, hey, here's what's under the cloud. And they're like, okay, when's it done? Which is a valid question. And there's been a lot of progress on Clear Coasts. And I'm really excited about, this upcoming year that we've been working on it because, I mean, honestly, a part of why we did make the decision not to do Toonfest this year was that we really want to be able to stay fully focused on Clear Coasts and the other content that we're developing. And we had done sort of like 3 back-to-back Toonfests. We did 3 Toonfests in the span of like a year and a half, and they were amazing, for all the reasons mentioned. But they did honestly slow down progress a bit, and so now we're really trying to refocus on like let's get our efficiency back up. Let's make sure that it's not going to be another decade before we get to see Clear Coasts in person. And the team has been doing a phenomenal job. We have one of our design leads, Dante, has taken over as project director, where I was originally the project director and stepped back into more of like a creative director capacity to help out with like across all of our projects. And Dante has been a huge part of spearheading the progress on gags, which I know is something that a lot of people are very excited to hear about. I can't tell you what those gags are today, but I can tell you that
Oh.
we know what we're building. And we know what they're going to be. We've been play testing them internally. We're really excited about the ideas that have come together. And so, you know, we know that new gags are coming to Clear Coast. We don't know exactly what they are, but what I can say is that it seems like our friend Melville from Donald's Dock has finally tracked down the Island of Lost Gags, which is
Oh.
something, do a little bit of research on that. You'll find some deep cuts in Toontown lore there. But after many, many years, Melville's tracked down some clues as to where this Island of Lost Gags is. And so we know, again, which gags we're going forward with. We know what sort of new dynamics we're going to be adding to Toontown with those gags. And we're now really laser focused on how do we make sure that they're well balanced with the existing game, that they feel true to Toontown's battle system, not like something that's just tacked on, but something that feels like it's always been there, and not something that adds, a ton of complexity to the game, but that is a very nice complement to all of the existing game. We're getting lots of feedback from our internal testing, and then eventually we'll open it up to public testing as well to get even more feedback about these things before the public launch. Um, Outside of gags, lots of progress has been made on the art for Clear Coasts. The playground, people saw last year at Toonfest Orlando, the kind of alpha version of that playground. We're now much closer to a beta version of it in terms of its like textured appearance, the tweaks that have been made based on playtesting feedback. Um, we're really looking for ways to make sure that Clear Coast is a place that appeals to beyond just endgame players. We want to make sure that it's not just somewhere that you go to after you finish Downstreamland, but it's somewhere that you want to go to throughout all of the game and that feels nicely integrated with the rest of the game. And so we're looking a lot at we play tested the dance floor last year. We're looking at other activities that can encourage people to want to go to this area, even before they're assigned Toon tasks to go there. And also looking at, how does it impact the existing story of Toontown? What are the ways that it can maybe be integrated into the task line? Again, not just as something tacked on at the end, but something that feels like it's always been there and is a cohesive part of the game. Whether you have a 140 laugh tune that you have had for years and are like ready for that new content, or whether you're creating a new tune tomorrow, like we want it to feel like it's a natural part of a tune story. And then lastly, the other thing I can share about Clear Coasts is for joint ventures. So joint ventures was another thing that we play tested last year at ToonFest Orlando, and that was cog buildings that combine multiple cog departments together. We got a lot of really great feedback from that. We really took in all of that feedback, and I don't want to give any spoilers about it. I don't want to share too much, but one thing that is very exciting that I can share is that those buildings are going to be more than just cross-department cog collaboration. It's going to be more than just combining, existing cogs and just as is, kind of presenting them in a battle. There will be some new mechanics as well that make those buildings feel really interesting and special and really refreshing to kind of bring some new life to different parts of the game. So yeah, overall, that's kind of the update on Clear Coast. I'm sorry that I don't have timelines or anything like that to share. We are still in the midst of production. These things take a long time to put together because we want to get it right. But there's certainly going to be more updates shared as we get closer and closer to the beta stage where we, want to do some public play testing. Um, and hopefully those little teases in the meantime give you something to get excited about.
I mean, I feel like what you've already shared is very exciting, and I'm sure after the bit of information about Melville, people will be rushing to try and find those deep cuts and try and start to theorize what could be happening. And you mentioned earlier about how, like, obviously, it's not just Clear Coasts and joint ventures, there's other projects going on. And so, one of the other questions that was asked by the community is, aside from Clear Coasts, what can we expect from the future of Toontown Rewritten?
Yeah, so the other things that we're working on, in addition to Clear Coast, things that we've announced before, is we have a new launcher project that has been in development. Again, we did a playtest of that at ToonFest Orlando. That has continued and is very close to being ready to release to the public. So we are aiming to release that this year. It's something that you can expect to see within 2026. Again, I won't be more specific than that because I don't want to bite my tongue or anything, but that has gotten very far along, and at long last, after 13 years, we're going to say goodbye to the original launcher that was supposed to be temporary and has a lot of bugs and stuff into something that creates a much better experience for people logging into Toontown, and hopefully something that makes you feel a lot more connected to the game. Um, so we have the new launcher project. We have Toontown Remastered, which has continued as well. We have moved on to some other areas that I don't want to say specifically what they are yet, but we're getting really close to some more uh, content updates there that I think you can also expect to see within 2026. Um, and then the other thing is our next update project. That's one that went on the back burner for a little while and was one of the things that we really have decided to focus on more this year into getting back into a good place, because the eternal tension of our team is that we want to create this amazing long-term content, these big updates that people want to see that add on to the game, like a new playground with Clear Coasts, and like the graphics updates with remastered. But the tension is that those projects can be hard to balance developing long-term content and developing short-term content. And being a team of volunteers, we just don't always have all the hands available to be able to keep both of those running efficiently. But it's something that we have rededicated ourselves to, that like this year we really want to get into a good groove of releasing more short-term quality of life content, like little tweaks, bug fixes, things that just make the day-to-day Toontown experience better at much faster intervals than we've done in the past, because you know, we've tried to do these next update pushes that end up being sort of like medium-sized uh, updates, like updates that take maybe 3 to 6 months to put together, which is great. Like we love those kind of updates too. They're certainly still necessary, but we want to get more into a system where it's a little closer to what we used to do in the alpha and beta days with more frequent, very small changes, like things where our programming team is just kind of like knocking off lists through the list of bugs and like finding some of the like most commonly requested uh, bits of feedback that people have, and how can we implement those faster, and you know, release them in updates faster instead of like bundling them all together for like a mega update that takes 6 months to release. So certainly you can expect to see more of that in the future. And then the last thing I'll say is like we're still looking at um, tune tasks and rebalancing, and looking especially at, you know, Lawbot and BossBot headquarters, and how can we make sure that the content for those uh, uh, you know, cog headquarters is fun, and is something that people really enjoy doing instead of something that feels like a grind. And so that is a part of that whole next update process as well, that we're hoping to share more about soon.
That's really, really interesting, and yeah, be excited to see all that come out. And so, a really good question that I found really interesting wasn't necessarily the most popular one, but it was interesting. Was what is it like balancing your job with the development of TTR? Is it difficult? Is there a balance? And like, how would or do you balance it?
Well, I appreciate that question a lot because yeah, I admit it's a lot. I admit that uh, I'm a very busy person, and uh, sometimes uh, the sometimes it all comes to a head uh, more so than I wish that it would, in terms of the amount of responsibilities on my shoulders. But I just love what I do so much that like I love continuing to be a part of Toontown. I love getting to work on stuff for shell games. And like being a game designer is such a dream that I really enjoy, like you know, doing it for my career, which is something that has always been a dream of mine, and again, something I don't take for granted. And coming home and getting to work on it more in my volunteer time. So the way that I've always tried to balance it is um, trying to structure my life around the responsibilities that are most important to me, because I don't want to just work my whole life away, you know. And so that ultimately is, you know, family is a big part of it. You know, I have a son who um I he's ultimately like my top priority, and I make sure that like I have lots of time to spend with him. I have, you know, obviously other family as well that is a priority for me. And throughout my life, I've just tried to, you know, because Toontown's been a part of my life since I was 15, you know, working on it since I was 15. And I've always had these different stages where I thought, you know, once I get to this milestone, I wonder if I'm going to have to stop working on Toontown. You know, originally I was like, well, I wonder if once I graduate high school, maybe I won't be able to work on this game anymore. Maybe I won't have time to do it. Or maybe once I graduate college, or maybe once I get married, or maybe once I have a kid, and like so on and so forth. Maybe once I start a career. And, you know, I ask those questions at each of those milestones, and I try to be honest with myself about, can I still handle this? Do I still have the capacity to do it? And ultimately it still ends up being a part of my life, and something that I make a priority because of everything we've talked about, with how meaningful it is to people, how much it enriches my life, and that I, you know, hopefully get to enrich other people's lives through the work that I do for it. It, you know, honestly, I do think it makes me a better dad, and it makes me you know, being able to be more fulfilled in my friendships and relationships because of what I've learned through working on this game. It enriches, you know, my career. It enriches all sorts of things in my life. And so um, the the shortest answer in how I balance it all is that I don't sleep nearly as much as I should, and that's something I need to work on. Usually what my days look like is I will get up, I'll go to work and, work at Shell Games from, 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever my hours look like for that day. I'll get home and spend like 6 to 11 p.m., like spending time with family, with my son and my wife, and just really being able to uh, be with them and make them a priority. And then after 11 p.m. is my time for Toontown, where I'll hop online, work on whatever rewritten needs for the couple hours of my day, usually until 2 a.m. or later. And then I'll get up the next morning and repeat it all. And honestly, I love doing it. It's such a fun life. Again, it's not one I want to endorse in terms of health because I do need to be getting more sleep, but it's it's just something that I never really want to let go of because I've seen how much it's making a positive impact for people.
And I think like even just like the timings that you were giving, I was trying to place it because like for those that do not know, like we were speaking yesterday and like trying to just get things organized for this interview. And the best bit about it is that I was up at about I think 5:30 in the morning in the UK because my son woke up and I was like, oh, I'll just check Discord see if there's anything. And I got a message from you and I was like, it must be like midnight or something for you at that point. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you're really yeah, but I do the same as well. Like I think yeah, my son, my wife, family is like top priority, and I sort of shape everything around that. So like, it's really interesting to hear how you balance it because it sounds very similar to what I do. I don't know whether that's just more because I now have a son, and so how I view priority just has shifted. But yeah, I don't know if that's a dad thing or not. But yeah, it's really interesting to hear that balance because I think there's gonna be other people that are wanting to do something like this, whether that's just like being involved in Toontown Rewritten or another project. It's like balance is really key, and sleep as well. Um,
Yeah, I
so
think the way I would summarize it is essentially like, I wouldn't necessarily endorse my schedule, but what I would endorse is like if you want to be a part of something like this and you're trying to figure out like how do you balance your your life with like your passion projects and all that sort of stuff, make a priority list of like what is really most important to you, what do you value most in your life, and what are the ways that you want to spend your time. Is it family, is it friends, is it learning, so on and so forth, and then try structure around those responsibilities and see if you can make some things fit, and then also get really good at delegating. Admit that you can't do it all, and that, like we learned from Toontown, things are better when you work together, and surround yourself with great people who share that passion that you share and want to help help create something together.
yeah, and I guess with all those different priorities going on, I mean one thing I'm gonna point out is that I know in the background you have some of the wonderful makeshift campaigns of like Flippy, Doc Shirley, Lord Down and Clear, and the oh my gosh, Flunky. I almost forgot their name. I was really ashamed of myself then. One question that has been asked is, will we get makeshift vinyl figures like Flippy and Doodles?
Yeah, so this is a really good question. I was excited to see this one asked because that is something we've explored. We've talked about with makeshift, can we do vinyl figures? And so the complication with vinyl figures, we've actually fully designed one. I'll say, I won't say what it is, but we have a fully designed vinyl figure. They do require a lot more sales than the plushies do, and so in order to like fully ship and everything. And so we really want to do it, but we need your guys' help. If you are excited about Toontown vinyl figures, make sure to post about it, Reddit or whatever other community space is. Share your excitement for that. Put it in our Discord channel, and give it an upvote. Because we want to sort of show makeshift for this, and that it's something that we think really would be fulfilled in the campaign, and is something that we would fully be able to ship. Um, so while we aren't doing the vinyls yet, it is something we want to do. An announcement that I am really excited to share: we are launching a new makeshift campaign soon for something that people have been asking for a really long time, and that is Toontown shirts. We're going to be doing 2 Toontown shirts that are themed to like in-universe Toontown shirts. One of them about a shop in Toontown, one of them about an organization in Toontown. And you may even notice that I'm wearing one of them today.
Oh,
This is my my crack up auto repair shirt. I'm gonna back up a little bit to make sure you can see
that
it.
is
Turn
amazing.
around so you can see the back. Uh, and so this is one of the prototype shirts. The final design is going to be a little bit different. It'll have a bit of like a more washed out look to it, and kind of look like it's like an auto shop shirt, you know, that's been sort of rough and ready a bit. So that's one of the shirts that will be launching very very soon. We're looking at you know, I don't want to necessarily say any dates, but I'll say in the next you know, 2 to 3 months, we're looking at launching that campaign. And then the other shirt, you know, you'll have to wait and see what that is, but they're both lovely designs that our art team has worked hard on making feel authentic and making feel like part of Toontown. And one of the reasons that I love designs like this is that it feels like a shirt that isn't just like a Toontown shirt. Like, it's not just like the Toontown Rewritten logo or whatever, but it feels like something that if I were a Toon living in Toontown, like, this is a shirt I could buy. Like, I could walk into Crack Up Auto Repair, talk to Lucy Tires, and like buy some of her merch, you know. And so yeah, we're super excited about that. Be on the lookout for it. Um, uh, Lavender, who's in the chat here, is the art director for our makeship campaigns. So make sure to send her some love. Um, and yeah, we'll be excited to share more soon.
I am incredibly excited. I'm already sold. I think myself and a lot of the people in the community are ready to purchase the shirt. We don't know what the other shirt is, but I think it doesn't matter. I think we're all sold, and obviously it's going to be not only is it going to be very exciting because it's just looks incredible. Also, it goes to a fantastic cause as well. So there we go. 2 to 3 months, we will see a new makeshift campaign, which is yeah amazing. I wasn't expecting that. It was really throw me
Yeah,
off.
you've got an exclusive here.
I know. There you go. Um, we sort of got more questions to follow on from there after that. But I guess like what we can go from there is I guess let's go. It's talking about like that. It's been inspired by the like in the games and everything. And I guess one of the things, an interesting question that was asked was, like Toontown Rewritten is a very faithful continuation of the original game. Given how much game design and game development has evolved over the last 20 years, how much would it be different would it be if a fresh Toontown was created? Like if the TTR built it from scratch, would there be any unique or new gameplay elements you'd include that you don't see in other games?
Absolutely. I mean, I it's no secret that a dream of mine is to create a Toontown reboot. You know, I really think that it would be amazing to create a new Toontown from scratch, a Toontown 2 or whatever it would be. Not to replace Toontown Written, but to complement it, you know, in the same way that you know, all sorts of games, like you know, when sequels come out, you can still enjoy the original game, and that still exists and is a great thing. And then, you know, let the sequel expand on it and, you know, try out some new things and some different things and go to different settings and whatnot. I think the biggest thing that we would benefit from in doing a Toontown reboot, assuming it were with a, you know, a paid development team, you know, if it were backed by Disney or, you know, Shell Games or whoever, um, that uh, you know, it would be really great to refresh the graphics, like even more so than we're able to do with remastered, to bring it to different consoles. You know, I think Toontown on the Nintendo Switch would be amazing. We already do
Mm.
have Toontown Rewritten on the Steam Deck, but to be able to like expand it to especially those like portable platforms like the Switch and Steam Deck, I think are like perfect for Toontown. Um, I think when it comes to the gameplay and mechanics, um, a lot of it I would want to keep the same because it's such a tried and true formula. I don't think that people, you know, in my opinion, and talking to community members and my own thoughts are that a lot of people don't really want um to change Toontown a lot. Like the battle system's great, the cogs are great. Like I think what they crave is just more of that thing that they love. So, maybe, same gag tracks but new gags. Maybe some different playgrounds, some of which are like refreshed versions of existing playgrounds, some of which are brand new ones. New storylines, new ways to like play with the cartoon medium. That's something that like there's a lot of limitations that we have with Toontown because it was built in Panda 3D, which is a really old game engine. Has done a great job of surviving the test of time, but also doesn't have some of the things that we might be able to do to really like play with the idea of like this is a cartoon world. It's wacky, it's weird. There's all sorts of crazy things that can happen. Um, I think there's a lot more visually and mechanically we could do to play with that idea if we were to create a reboot. Um, and ultimately too, like I think it's the biggest thing that I think is exciting about a reboot is just the fact that we would get to expose a whole new generation of fans to Toontown.
Mm.
Like we already get to do that, of course, with Rewritten and in small ways. But there's always going to be the people who sort of write off of like, oh, that's a really old game. I'm not really interested in playing that, or just we don't have the marketing reach to be able to uh, reach kids in some places today that we just wouldn't be able to without a marketing budget of some sort. And um, like going back to that idea of like Toontown really being a community centric game, I think it's a game that is better when there's more people playing it, when there's more diverse perspectives in there, when you have a wider variety of age ranges and people from all over the world like being a part of this community together. And I think like a Toontown reboot, that's the biggest thing that you would gain from that is having uh, the ability to bring it to just a lot more people and to be able to um, create a familiar but new environment where it's the same Toontown that we know and love, but with a modern take, some freshened up mechanics, some freshened up graphics, and new stories that we get to tell. And one thing I can say is I've actually because I'm crazy when it comes to Toontown lore, uh, I I already have the story in my head for a Toontown reboot. I know how it connects from Toontown Rewritten to Toontown 2. I know what the plot would be of the next game if I have any say in it. Um, and there's already even ways that we foreshadow that in Toontown Rewritten's story. And so it's going to be a long time before that ever happens, if ever. But what I often say is, I'm 28 years old. I've got, say, 40-ish years left in my game dev career, and as I said, I've dedicated my life to Toontown at this point, and I'm not planning on changing that. And so I hope at some point in the next 40 years of my career that I'll be able to be a part of an effort to create a formal Toontown reboot that gets to serve as a complement to Toontown Rewritten and the other projects, and gets to just kind of see a fresh take on what the world of Toontown could be.
40 years is a long time. Anything can happen. So we can
Yeah,
only hope that it can happen and we can learn more about what this whole law would be. And you mentioned, like, yeah, it's things you want to keep hold of and then, like, add these new elements to it. And I guess Clear Coast is a little bit like that, where it's something completely new to the community. And so, one person in the community asked, "How would you plan? Let me start again. How would you plan to maintain the nostalgic feeling of Toontown Rewritten with the addition of Clear Coast and everything else coming with it, or does it mostly just boil down to it's practically the same up until Donald's Dreamland?"
yeah. So it's something that with all the content we create, part of the reason it takes so long is because one of our core pillars of Toontown Rewritten is all about making sure it's a continuation of Toontown Online, that it feels like something that would have naturally happened if Toontown Online were still being developed by Disney today, or even if it had been something that was maybe there from the game at release. And the best compliment that we ever hear is when people don't realize that content that we've added to the game wasn't a part of Toontown Online. Like you see that with like deer and crocodile tunes. There's a lot of people that have this kind of like Mandela effect type of thing that they're like, oh yeah, like I guess they were always a part of Toontown Online. And similar with like the new battle UI that we've created. That's one of my favorite examples. And we spent, you know, probably thousands of hours trying to make that feel authentic to the original game. Like we needed to refresh the battle UI because we had these new mechanics and things that we wanted to add to it when we released Sellbot Field Offices. But we wanted to make sure, with that being like the primary interface of the game and the one that you see most often, that we weren't refreshing it into something that would suddenly no longer be nostalgic. And so when you look at that interface, hopefully the way that you feel and the way that I've heard other community members express is that it it is nostalgic still. Like it's brand new. Like all of it was made from scratch, but you look at it and it reminds you of childhood and it reminds you of your memories of the game growing up. And if you know if that was an experience that you had, um, and so it feels authentic and feels like it's always been there, even though it's a brand new interface. And some of that is just simply using the existing visual language, wanting to make sure that like the color scheme, the layout and everything feels reminiscent of that. But on a deeper level, it comes from a lot of play testing and a lot of like that indescribable feeling of like just you can look at something in games and kind of tell a lot of times when it was something added later on and when it was something that was always a part of the original plan. And it's really hard to walk that line. And we just get there through continuous refinement and playtesting. We get obsessive about having people provide feedback on it over and over and over again, and making tweaks and making little changes until it's just exactly right. And that's the process we're going through with Clear Coasts right now when it comes to, of course, the playground design itself, but also especially the new gags that we're adding to the playground. We want to make sure those gags feel like they've always been a part of the game. We want to make sure the playground feels like it's always been a part of the game. Um, and to the second part of that question of like, is it going to boil down to, is it just practically the same up until Dawn Streamland? We're trying to integrate Clear Coasts into the earlier parts of the game, as I sort of mentioned earlier in the update, that we're trying to make sure that um, Clear Coasts feels like the story that Toontown has always been trying to tell. That it's like it always led to Clear Coasts, and not something that's just like, it led to Downstreamland, and then it led to Lawbot headquarters, and then it led to Bossbot headquarters, and then it led to Salbot task force, and then it led to Clear Coast, and like all these like just kind of like little mini things tacked on to the end. Um, and so that means that like we're not just adding stuff to the end of the game, but we're going back to earlier parts of the game and seeing what are things that we can kind of subtly shift to point towards Clear Coasts and make sure they still feel nostalgic and make sure they feel um you know uh, like what people remember from Toontown Online, um but that just start kind of like placing uh the idea of Clear Coast in there so that it's just a natural part of the end of the game.
That's really, really interesting. And so, yeah, I think like, and I guess going from that question then is I want to like ask some of the questions that the community asked that like go really into some of like the integral features of Toontown and some bits that maybe even from the very beginning that people want to like explore a bit more. So the first question is, will the dev team ever give us a chat log feature?
That's something we've talked about a lot, and it's a debate, because a chat log is one of those things that like it would be really easy to get it wrong. Like the way that chat logs work in most games is um, it brings your attention to a little window, like in the bottom part of your screen. I don't know where I'm cropped here, but somewhere around here, that uh, like diverts your attention completely to that UI interface. Like it's just all about like this is where I'm talking to other people. They're just kind of like a username with a text message in this little bubble down here. And the Toontown Online developers intentionally avoided that because they wanted, again, as we've talked about, Toontown to feel like a real social space. And when you're talking to people in a social space, you're not looking at a little interface of their names with the text of what they said. You're looking at their face, like you're looking at their person. And in the case of Toontown, you're looking at their toon, because their chat messages pop above their head. And that's something that creates a lot of social for presence in the game. It's something that um, we think is an important part of the connection of Toontown that, you know, a lot of people don't think about when it comes to like the dynamics of the game and what dynamics you lose when adding a feature like a chat log. However, we fully recognize too that like sometimes you just miss someone's message. Like they said something, you looked away for a second, the chat bubble went away, and that's kind of annoying to ask them to say it again. Um, and uh, there's lots of like utility that can come from a chat log that could also increase connection. And so we want to walk the line between how do we make sure that we're maintaining the social presence and making sure that Toontown feels like a real world where you're interacting with people face to face, while also getting the benefits of some of those utilities that a chat log would provide. So we have been experimenting with that very recently. Something that we do is every January, this started last year, we do something called the Trolley Game Jam. And we take the whole month of January to pause our other projects and allow our team to work on anything that they want to work on. And we call it the Trolley Game Jam because it's more of a guideline of like what you work on for this month should be roughly the size of a trolley game in terms of scope. Um, and so one of the things that a couple people from our team worked on was a chat log feature. It's something that we have prototypes now that are implemented into the game. We have some mock-ups of the interface, not the final interface, but we have a lot of good ideas about how we can walk that line really well of social presence and utility. And I do think it's going to be something that we add to the game eventually. It's not something that's necessarily coming soon. There's still a lot of work to be done for it. It still needs to go through that whole process of making sure it feels like it's always been there for Toontown and that we preserve the nostalgia and the game dynamics and stuff. But it's gotten work very recently. There's some people on our team who are very passionate about it, and I do believe that it's going to be something we see added to the game one day.
I think that's a really interesting point you made about the how actually it takes away from that like social connection to a certain extent because you're not necessarily focusing on the tune and what they're saying. You can be diverse to the UI. So that's yeah, and I think it's really interesting about how to try and it's not okay saying absolutely not. It's we can explore it, but let's see how we can make it work, make it feel like it's always been there. And so I appreciate your time so much. So I'm going to ask you one question, which I think is a very good
Yeah.
question, and it's about the lore. And so the question is, will we ever get a deeper dive in the story lore of Slappy and the other cogs in the elections?
Yes, we definitely will. Not necessarily soon, sorry that I keep saying that. We do have a lot of things that we're doing, but the question of where's Slappy, the question of what's going on with the chairman, what's going on with the elections, what's going on with Dr. Surly, that is an arc that is going to be wrapped up one day, at least if I have anything to do with it. Again, I know how that story ends. The end of that story has actually a lot of it's been written since the beginning of Toontown Rewritten. We've known like where the end game is going in terms of finding Slappy and whatnot. The executive office tower and all those sort of things. We know what those are and what we want them to be. Um, and so we aren't committed to necessarily like what the big thing is next after Clear Coasts, but there is a lot of excitement around the idea of where is Slappy? How do we wrap up that story? How can we sort of ultimately conclude the arc that started in 2013 with Dr. Surly and his whole time travel thing? And we want to take that story and find ways to integrate it into the main game, so that if you weren't around since 2013, or haven't caught up on all of that lore, you don't have to do a bunch of homework to understand it. um, so it's what I see as kind of the end of book one of Toontown Rewritten. If book one is kind of like from the whole time travel story and the whole Slappy story and the elections and everything, I would say that we're currently about like like 80% into that book in terms of like the story that's been told so far, and the last 20% of that is something that needs to be told through a content update that hopefully we will work on after Clear Coast, but we'll see. But certainly, as long as I'm around for Toontown Rewritten, I am determined to make sure that story gets told, and determined to keep working on Toontown Rewritten until we get to conclude that book.
That is amazing, and I was not expecting to say, "Oh yeah, we know what the end is." And now all my head's thinking is like, "What could it be? Like, what's already been figured out?" Which is amazing. I do
Yeah,
have one small question to ask you just
yeah,
before we finish up, and that is basically it's not one of the ones that I've like sort of prepared. It's sort of a last minute one, but basically we've got the Toontown community here. Is there anything that you would like to say to the Toontown community?
yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I mean, the most immediate thing that comes to mind is just thank you. Like, thank you for um, being a part of this community, for creating this community, just in the ways that you are interacting here in the chat, sending in your questions, creating fan art, posting on social channels, playing the game, making friends, like all of those things. Like I've echoed a few times, Toontown just doesn't work without all of that. It's not something that makes sense as a game unless there's a lot of really awesome, lovely, passionate people that are creating this kind community that we have. And I feel a great sense of, responsibility and um, just thankfulness in being able to be, to have a role in that at all. And it's not something that I see as like, something that we as Toontown Rewritten have created, but like really I think like you guys are the reason that we get to keep creating more things, and keep to get to keep this game alive. Um so yeah, it like, thank you for being a part of it. Thanks for being here and listening to me ramble for, almost an hour and a half. I hope that it's been fun and that you've learned some things about Toontown Rewritten that maybe you didn't know before. And I'm excited for the next time I get to do something like this, because it's just always a pleasure to interface with the community like this.
Thank you so much, Joey, and yeah, thank you not only for your time but for like just everything that you've done with Toontown Rewritten. And I am very excited to see many years to come and the next 40 years of Toontown's reboot and everything as well.
Absolutely. I'll be talking about Toontown until the day I die, I imagine. So there's more to come.